All right, so I've been doing a little bit of reading, talking, watching, researching. I have a couple articles pulled up, and I'm not fully read up onto it, but we're gonna be looking at heuristics as we move forward. And I think that this is actually gonna be a really good topic to talk about in a game like League of Legends, because it gives us a lot of you could do video game addiction. It's in the DSM. There's no way. Um, but that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of things. So heuristics on its own is the process of by which we make decisions. Um, I made a terrible decision here. um, and as we kind of move into this, it'll talk a little bit about certain biases. But I'm gonna try to tailor this directly to League of Legends and your potential decision making and thoughts. So let's start with, I guess, game theory. But hey, that's just a theory. Um, and it's two things. It's called positional heuristics and directional heuristics. So um, positional heuristics is the idea of knowing whether you are ahead or behind, or winning or losing. So if I was to say like my Akali, my flash is gone. Like I don't have my flash anymore, right? Because you know, I ended my flash. So right now I am behind, and I play like I'm behind. Um, I'm not looking for an opportunity where this Yasuo can get a really strong trade. Because if he gets a long trade, then I'm not gonna be able to do anything. So since I'm behind, my decision making is going to be affected. And let's think about it this way. Let's say that you are behind 2,000 gold, and it's 8 minutes into the game. Grubs are about to spawn, and you guys are about to have a fight for the grubs. Let's say you're 2,000 gold behind, and that's only in the top half of the map. You might be even in gold overall, but the gold that you have is on your ADC and support, and the gold that the enemy has is on their top jungle and mid. Um, you have this. You're in this position. This is the positional heuristic part where you are losing, and now you need to think of a way to get out of this position. And this is where directional heuristics is what it's called, comes into play. Directional heuristics is the plan and thought process that one has to achieve a goal or to solve a problem. The problem in League of Legends being, how can I win my game? So you're behind 2,000 gold. All right. Well, there are a couple things you can do. Any action that you take, and this comes down to a good action, let's say a good action, a poor action, and no action. So if you make you have a delta of 2,000 gold. If you make a poor decision and you act poorly, your delta is going to increase. It is likely that your delta is increasing. So in directional heuristics, if you were to take that course of action, that would be a way to solve the problem of, I am not losing this game hard enough. How can I lose this game even harder? If you take a good action, the delta is no longer at 2,000. Instead, you might decrease it to 1,500 or 1,000 change. So there's that. And then the next step, and this is all league specific, is no action. And which if you have no action, whether you give more gold or not, but no action in an ideal world produces an equal delta. And this has to do with context, because while it is an equal difference between the two gold values, you now have the context of time being added in to this game of League of Legends. Well, how does time decrease the delta? Well, let's say that you have a 2k gold lead. All right, at a certain point in time, it is 5,000 gold to 7,000 gold. They have 40% increase in gold value. that is a lot. 40% is a very large amount. And if you don't believe me, I will ask for you to give me 40% of anything. And you will likely have to think twice before agreeing to give it up. So that is your largest difference, and largest kind of breaking point, I think, is what I wrote. I have horrible handwriting, but the largest break between the two values. As it moves on, you can get from 10k to 12k if you maintain. This is a no action directional heuristics. For 40% of my PP, that's 0.5 an inch. Can I actually have 40% of that? But the next status, let's say, is 10 to 12,000 gold. All right, so you have 10,000 gold, and the enemy has 12,000 gold. Because there is an equal difference of 2k, and the difference has not increased or decreased, the value of that gold lead has actually decreased from 40% to 20%. This is going to be the largest jump in value that you will see. It's the largest jump. After that is where you reach what we may say is an even point. So when you say 5,000 more gold, over time, you guys get 5,000 more gold. So now the difference is 15,000 to 17,000. And the difference there is 12.5%. And if you go 20,000 to 22,000, the difference is 10%. This is essentially even. You guys are reaching a point where this gold lead is essentially going to stay around this 10% and very slowly taper down. And this is your positional heuristics. Now, how do we think about positional heuristics and directional heuristics? Well, on one hand, a positional heuristic is tied very much within perception. So perception is this thing that we all have. It's what makes us intuitive. It's what makes us have intuition, cognition, all of these things. So it's fast. We see something on the screen and we react. It's automatic because we just see what's happening. There is no real thing that's associative. But this also is a little bit slow for us in terms of progress, because if we're just looking at what's happening, we may not be thinking concretely and strongly about other aspects, whether it's a reason or whether there's a direction that we're trying to reach or get to. So that is all the stuff that comes into positional and how directional plays into it. So taking action is your directional heuristics based on your position. The next thing that you want to say is inaction and observation without bias is your kind of how you base your directional heuristics, or action and observation. So what determines whether you take action or not? Well, for a game of League of Legends like this, it's going to be time. Time is going to be another factor that comes into this. So let's say we're 16 minutes into this game. The enemy team is really hard losing right now. So what kind of choices do they have? Well, the gold lead right now is 6,000, but a little bit beforehand it was 5,000, maybe even a little bit less. They still have time to potentially slow down this game and decrease the percentage of in that delta. So at this moment in time, they technically have a choice to do inaction, which is an action on its own. I'm sure action and inaction are both actions. But when do you have to take action? When you have to take action is when you are lost and you do not have time. This is when you'll see teams group up and take really hard bush cheeses or something to that effect. A bush cheese is going to be very, very common for people trying to come out of a losing game, because they know that they don't have the ability to get out of it. So let's talk again a little bit also. Hold on. Bias. We're going to touch a little bit about bias and how it can affect the actions that we take. So, based on positional heuristics, we can look at the directional heuristics and bias of not only ourselves, but the other team, the enemy. So, what does that look like? Well, I am playing, let's say I am playing Twisted Fate, and my opponent is playing Talon. In this scenario, I get, let's say, a double kill. Let's say I get a double kill on him. Well, in my mind, I know that there is a bias on this Talon to look around the map for a lead rather than staying in lane playing against a ranged person. So, with that information, I'm assessing his directional, his plan, and I am now adjusting my plan because of it. So, when I notice that Talon is going to try to move around the map, I am now going to clear my wave as Twisted Fate as fast as possible, and even sometimes I may just run around to the bot side of the map before he does, because then I can use my ult for some other thing. But there's a book called Nudge, and it's a trading market book, but it's about how you can use the bias of others to influence your decision making, not just in the market, but you know, all over. And heuristics is just, you know, fancy for fancy decision making and how we function. Let's and then the next thing that I want to talk about, I guess, is just general improvement. So there's a couple of different things to look at with general improvement, and that is I didn't get the blue buff, and that is whether it's fast or slow. So there's this thing called trial and error. Trial and error is a very, very easy thing to understand. I try something, I failed, therefore that thing does not work. That is extremely slow in information gathering. The next thing that you would maybe try to do is broadly intake as much information, analyze, and you know, have a rule-governed approach where you assess the value of certain actions and indications based on like, I guess, a more traditional approach of heuristics, which is that traditional the traditional understanding of oh my god, my brain just farted. My brain just shit itself. What is that shit? Farts. That's what it is. Patterns, because we're pattern-seeking animals, or contexts. We put them into certain contexts. Like, if I am a top laner and I get a lead against my laner in the first 10 minutes, and I am capable of zoning my opponent off, then I am going to zone them, because that is an effective way to do this. And the way that I can maybe assess and judge whether I am properly doing this is if I choose to say, oh, did I win this game? Did I get a significant gold and experience lead because of my zoning? Or did I not? I took an action that is tested to be effective, and I'm checking to see whether or not I am able to act on it. Another way that this kind of example of this is if you've ever been to a square dancing bar, you know, line dance. If you ever gone line dancing, square dancing, all this stuff, you know, you might be like, okay, well, I think I can get this, and they're teaching you the moves. They teach you the steps. They go, here's block 1, here's block 2, and here's block 3, and you do the steps in order, and you're like, okay, hey, I'm starting to get the hang of it. But then they say, all right, we're gonna do it for real now. And when you start doing it for real, you realize that you cannot keep up with the tempo of the song, because you were very intently observing in a very controlled and effortful scenario. Whereas now you're putting into this fast parallel process that you need to have associated to all of that rule governed learning that you've done. And now you need to just not only you've had no practice with it, so now you need to implement it faster. And so this is like, you need to be able to, I guess, in a sense, meld or um, put these two things together. So um, for heuristics, again, it's perception, intuition, and reason is kind of where we're going to go. Intuition is that idea of, I know that I'm going to beat the Yasuo in lane because my Akali has beaten a Yasuo every single time. Something that I don't know is whether or not Akali beats Yasuo plus Karthus. I hardly see Karthus in my games and in my elo. So, that's something that is very different for me. However, it's going to be a trial and error situation for me. Or maybe an even easier way to understand intuition and reason is a non-league example of what is 5 times 5. If you grew up with a times table, if you are not 4 years old, if you are hopefully a competent adult who does know math and simple multiplication, then you probably didn't have to think about saying 5 times 5 is 25. But if I said, I want you to add up, I want you to multiply 21 and 17 and 8. Or even if I said multiply 42 and 19. You might have a different process because it's not something that's immediate for you anymore. You're not sitting there. You didn't learn your times table up to 50. You learned your times table up to 12 or 15 or whatever. So it's now you're in this realm where you are trying to take stuff from your reasoning point of view, where you have this slow, controlled effort, and it's rule governed. You know how to do multiplication. You do the ones, you do the tens, you add a 0, you do the ones and the tens, and it's trying to make this scenario of this effective, logical approach, and making it an intuitive action in your brain, in your head. And this can only come from practice. Like, you're not gonna just out of nowhere have it happen. You're not just gonna out of nowhere hit 10 CS a minute. There's no way. It's something that has to be very effortful, very very controlled for you, and that's and it becomes hard. But when you have it, it's this conceptual idea in your head where you mold these two ideas that says, I have done 10 times 2, I have done 10 times 40. So 21 times 42 should be around 800. Maybe a little bit more, 860. But you're not. I do not have the Jinx victories thing. This is because of the spectating option. Someone on my team had the Jinx skin. But like, I am not good at math. But because I have experience and knowledge of how I did learn math, how I actively do math nowadays, and how I can effectively implement certain math processes to certain situations, then I'm able to effectively mold my intuition and my reason together so that I can faster figure it out. I didn't have to get a pen and paper and say, 21 times 42. Okay, well, 21 times 2 is 42, so let me write that down. And 21 times 2 is, I just said 20 times 40. Well, I said 10 times 2 times 40 because I'm a little child and I don't know big numbers. But, you can approximate the numbers and adjust them as needed. And if you need the exact answer, yeah, maybe you get pen and paper. But I didn't need an exact answer. I need an approximate solution to a problem. And there is no right solution to a problem, I think, is another thing that's really important to say here. The solutions that we find have results. They have context added to them, and it's something that we can kind of slowly work on and work with. I If someone throws a baseball at you at a pretty even like medium speed, like you're not just going to stand there and be like, well, the ball looks like it's coming at me, but let me just double check the trajectory. No, you're going to put your hands up because it's instinctual. It's intuition has led you to believe that a ball is going to hit you in the face. um you did not reason your way out of that one. You didn't reason your way to put your hands up. You intuitively put your hands up because a baseball's flying at your face. um However, a ball that's a little bit higher, that's maybe lobbed, is something that maybe you are combining reason and intuition with. If you are in the outfield and a ball is coming and you say, well, I see that this ball is coming, I have to run out there and get it, and I'm not just reactively putting my glove up the moment the ball's there. I am running to the point where I know the ball's going to fall because I can see the arc that it's traveling. So I am running to that spot, and now I'll put my glove up. It's there's a lot of ways to put all of these things together, and there's no right way, especially in a game as multifaceted as League of Legends. There are 9 other people all doing separate things at the exact same time. I wonder how many right clicks happen in a single game in a single minute of League of Legends, right? like like come on, there's so much happening. And I guess just like the idea of this, and this is like a specific to video games and board games and chess and all these different kinds of games for heuristics, because heuristics is just decision making, problem solving. But these positional and directional properties that we can put onto them is how I'm establishing this sort of buoy, establishing this sort of um, uh, better understanding. Um, so, positional being, are we ahead? Are we behind? Directional being, how can I win? And that directional can have a different scope, depending on the context that it's put in. How do I win my lane? How do I win the game? How do I win from a losing position? How do I win from a winning position? How do I not lose from this winning position? Um, how do we secure vision? Your directional heuristics is very contextually grounded in in whatever you need to do. Everything that you are doing is a problem, and everything should be done in a way to solve that problem. So that is in general like heuristics, and I'm going to read this one too because I do want to get a little bit more on the specific side, because I don't know if this one is going to mention trial and error. Um, but there's so much to learn about problem solving, and it's not even just like normal problem solving. We can find computer problem solving, and how that is also like, why are some problems harder to solve than others? But yeah, that's kind of like a little random rant that I had. I tried to write something up this time that like stuck pretty concisely, but it ended up being a little bit too hard of a gap between the difference between positional and directional heuristics, and the idea of heuristics as a whole being this perception, intuitive, and reasonable point of view, where our perception and intuition uh, often sit together to make us act a certain way in a snap scenario where like we need to have a response, and our reason is a slower one. And then likewise, it's how, whether it's stimulus bound or whether we have this conceptual pattern of thought that supports our intuition and reason being combined. So this is a little bit of a weird one for me to try and draft something. I definitely need more time, but hey, I'm going to be attempting to get better at doing this informative, how can I improve at video games with things that are effectively psychology to better, I guess, not only implement just in the video game, but like things that like you can implement in your real life. Like I think it's a lot harder to implement things into your real life if it's not something that you're gonna super enjoy. For me, having to have a total change in self, this whole not like this whole this change deep inside, metaphysical change. No, this deep change within my body and soul and mind. That holistic kind of change needed to happen in my life, but it was extremely hard. Um, I think it would be a lot easier if I had a holistic change in League of Legends, and then afterwards I was like, I actually use these tools a lot every day because I use them with my hobby. Maybe I can better implement them into my real life now that I've been able to implement them in some capacity to my fake life, my my second life. um, so yeah, when less information or computation leads to more accurate judgments than more information or computation. Tabula rasa. Tabula rasa is a Latin phrase that translates to blank slate. It refers to the philosophical idea that humans are born without pre-existing ideas or knowledge, and their minds are shaped solely by experiences and learning. I um I don't particularly think that's true, but I think that it can be. I think it's a good it's a good word to use. We don't know the meanings of things unless we have words to associate them to. Freeze the lane could mean 100 different things to someone who doesn't know shit about League of Legends. They might see the ice bird and be like, that's probably how you freeze the lane. Little do they know, she does the exact opposite of freezing the lane. Um, but so like anything that has a meaning can be a really good tool. And however you need to implement that and use that is going to ultimately be um, more important to you than anyone else. Just like everything that you do in your life, everything you do in the game, and everything you will ever do is always going to be more important to you than it is to someone else. That's my long-winded outro that I usually have. So there you go.